Michigan International Speedway, known for great racing, and 1995 was no exception. Unscheduled pit stops, accidents, and driver frustration all came into play as the afternoon sun beamed down on the 2-mile oval. But it all came down to the final few laps in a battle of nerves between Al Unser Jr. and Scott Pruitt. Numerous lead changes, but Scott Pruitt on the final lap passed to take his very first IndyCar win. Now, coming to Michigan International on May 26th, a new race and a new tradition, and the excitement of the IndyCars will be evident. The greatest names in the sport will be there for the inaugural US 500. Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Al Unser Jr., Robbie Gordon, Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, Jimmy Vasser, Christian Fittipaldi, Scott Pruitt, and Brian Herta. All of the stars of IndyCar at the US 500 on the Memorial Day weekend, Sunday, May 26th, live here on ESPN.
When CART wanted to compete with the Indy 500, they didn't go to a road course. They scheduled the US 500 at Michigan International Speedway, a track owned by Roger Penske. Michigan was the fastest track IndyCar raced at. The track record was 234 miles per hour, set by Mario Andretti. This was slightly faster than the record at Indy, which was 232 miles per hour, set by Roberto Guerrero in 1992. Michigan had the speed and excitement to compete with Indianapolis. They had the drivers, and whoever won the US 500 would earn $1 million, just slightly less than the Indy 500 winner. The US 500 was designed to copy some of Indy's schedule. Qualifying for the race would take place on the same weekend as Indy, giving each organization 2 weeks to promote the pole sitter for each race. Like a political campaign, CART stakeholders fought to convince fans that their event would be great, while the Indy 500 would be terrible. After 79 Indy 500s, perhaps the Speedway thought too highly of themselves.
They certainly want the world to stand still, or perhaps I put it another way, they want the world to revolve around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Michael Andretti repeatedly claimed the Indy 500 would put people in danger. With inexperienced drivers and the highest speeds ever, he predicted a race full of crashes and injuries. Michael's critics pointed out that he himself was currently on probation with CART for causing too many crashes. The idea of ignoring the other event and focusing on their own was something neither series could do.
I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. I've been around a little while, and I've had a lot of interaction with a lot of the drivers and car owners. I've gotten to know their personalities pretty well, and a lot of it's not surprising to me.
While the US 500 had the stars of IndyCar, it lacked the national attention of the Indy 500 and the tradition that came with 80 years of experience. As hard as they tried, these were problems CART couldn't overcome, as they desperately tried to put together a race with only 5 months to do so. Originally, CART wanted the US 500 on network TV to fight the Indy 500 head-to-head. CBS or Fox were potential candidates, but a deal wasn't reached, and the race was carried by ESPN. Already, the first battle was lost. Looking for tradition, the US 500 invoked the oldest international race, the Vanderbilt Cup. Originally held between 1904 and 1916, the race attracted the world's best teams in the early days of auto racing. A replica of the original Vanderbilt Cup trophy would be given to the winner. Both sides created the best product they could, knowing that May of 1996 could change the direction of IndyCar forever. But like every year, the attention was on Indy. The first 2 days of Indy 500 practice were washed out by rain. When the skies cleared on Monday morning, Tony Stewart completed his rookie test and ran a practice lap of 237.336 miles per hour, easily the fastest in the history of the track.
Seems like my driving style really likes this type of car, and the more experience and more time I'm running, the better off I'm getting with it.
That same day, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway filed a lawsuit against CART, forbidding them from using the name IndyCar, which was a trademark owned by the Speedway. Without Indy in their schedule, CART wouldn't be allowed to have Indy in their name. 3 days later, Thursday's practice saw Arie Luyendyk pass Stewart's record speed with a lap of 237.7 miles per hour. Off the track, Tony George openly considered expanding the starting field beyond the traditional 33 because there were so many cars entered. Ultimately, that wasn't done. On Fast Friday practice, Luyendyk ran the fastest lap in Indy history.
Guess why those guys are smiling? Arie Luyendyk just went 239.260 miles per hour at Indianapolis. Luyendyk has upped the ante again.
Meanwhile, in Michigan, CART drivers called the rising speeds at Indy artificial, and Michael Andretti said it was simply the result of more turbo boost than in past years. AJ Foyt responded by saying Michael had been a, quote, crybaby all his life, just like his father. At Indy, team owner John De La Pena claimed Luyendyk and the Menard cars had illegal levels of turbo boost. Tony Stewart said that everyone would be happier if De La Pena was loaded onto a truck and sent to Michigan. Entering the first weekend of time trials, the new qualifying system was the main topic. Of course, the top 25 cars and points were locked into the race, but this wasn't an absolute guarantee. For the first time since 1963, there was a minimum speed requirement to qualify for the race. Any speed slower than 220 miles per hour would be disallowed. Despite the guaranteed starting spots, pole qualifying in 1996 produced high drama. 3 minutes into morning practice, Arie Luyendyk nearly lost his car when Johnny Parsons crashed ahead of him. 20 minutes later, engine problems threatened Luyendyk's chance for the pole. Tony Stewart set the pace in qualifying. He ran an average speed of 233.1 miles per hour and officially broke the track record. Stewart's time on the pole held for another 3 hours. With little less than 30 minutes left in qualifying, Luyendyk finally had a new engine in his car and made his run. With a track record speed of 233.3 miles per hour, he knocked Stewart off the pole.
It is a new track record. He is on the pole. Arie Luyendyk is on the pole with a 233.390 miles an hour.
But then something unexpected happened. Scott Brayton's team withdrew his car from the race. As rules stated, you couldn't requalify a car once it completed a run. So Brayton's team withdrew his 6th fastest speed, pulled out his backup car, and sent him back on track to fight for his 2nd straight pole.
Yes. He's got the pole, baby! Yeah. And he did it! He did it! A new 4-lap record! A new 4-lap record!
Brayton's massive gamble paid off. His pole run was one of the most memorable moments in qualifying history. Hours later, it was discovered that Luyendyk's car was 7 pounds too light, and his qualifying run was disqualified. The front row was now Brayton, Stewart, and Davy Jones. In Michigan, qualifying for the US 500 was marred by cold temperatures of 42 degrees, and a wind that made it feel below freezing. Jimmy Vasser won the pole with a speed of 232 miles per hour, under Indy's time.
And you won't believe it, over 236 miles an hour, and it's a new track record. And he did it again. It's a new track record. 236.948 miles an hour, and how? Over 237 miles an hour. And it's another new track record. 237.498 miles an hour. How do you like that? Arie Luyendyk, a new track record, 10 miles.
Arie Luyendyk made up for his Saturday disappointment with an even faster run. Because he qualified on the 2nd day, however, Luyendyk would start 21st. To keep costs down in 1996, all cars in the IRL had to be at least 1 year old. While CART teams wouldn't run in the new series, they gladly sold their cars to IRL teams. Buddy Lazier's car was a former Chip Ganassi Reynard, driven by Jimmy Vasser in '95. Johnny Unser qualified using the car Scott Goodyear nearly won with the year before. Scott Harrington's Lola was the same one that A.J. Foyt drove in his final Indy 500 in 1992. Brayton's pole-winning car was the same one that Leyendijk finished 7th with in 1995. And Arie Leyendijk's record car was a 1994 Reynard that was Jacques Villeneuve's backup car in 1994 and crashed by Johnny Parsons in practice in 1995. Before 1971, dirt tracks were part of the IndyCar schedule. The decision to take them off the schedule hurt sprint car drivers in finding rides at Indy. In 1974, USAC banned rear-engine sprint cars from competition. This made the difference between sprint cars and Indy cars even greater, and the road to Indy much tougher. For the IRL, Tony Stewart was the perfect example that sprint car drivers could still easily adapt to Indy. But he also angered CART drivers in Michigan when he said that anyone who could race a midget at Winchester would have no trouble running at Indy. Dan Drinan also said that an Indy car was easier to drive than a midget. Up in Michigan, Jimmy Vasser said that that was ridiculous, that he would do a lot better at Winchester than Stewart could do it on a street course. Stewart also said that anyone who wanted to, quote, buy a name was racing at Michigan, and that all the real race car drivers were in Indianapolis. On track at Indy, the second week of practice started in a relaxed manner. The only cautions were for animals. A yellow was thrown when a chipmunk got onto the front stretch, and 2 separate yellows were thrown when a mother duck and 9 ducklings twice walked onto the track in turn 1. 2 veteran drivers walked through the garage area and talked to team owners, hoping to race someone's backup car. Rumors said that 59-year-old Gordon Johncock might qualify a car for Ron Himmelgarn if Brad Murphy could qualify. If that happened, Johncock would become the oldest driver to attempt the Indy 500, passing the record set by 59-year-old James Reynolds, who failed to qualify in 1919. On Thursday, 54-year-old Danny Ongaius got a ride in an uncompetitive car owned by Butch Brickell. The Flying Hawaiian hadn't driven at Indy since 1987 and was a long shot to qualify. Later that day, Scott Harrington crashed the race car he sold his Porsche to buy. The car A.J. Foyt drove in his final Indy 500 was damaged beyond repair. The man who sacrificed so much was in serious trouble.
Harrington is all right, but his Indy dreams suffer a major setback.
Then, on Friday, tragedy struck. Scott Brayton was practicing Tony Stewart's backup car when he suffered a punctured right rear tire entering turn 2.
We take you immediately to Indianapolis Motor Speedway for an update on the condition of the pole sitter Scott Brayton, who suffered a bad accident about 4 hours ago.
May 17th, 1996, 4 p.m. Race car driver Scott Brayton, 37, of Coldwater, Michigan, died at 12:50 p.m. local time today at Methodist Hospital of Indiana. Brayton's death was due to injuries sustained in an accident which occurred at 12:17 p.m. today at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway during practice for this year's Indianapolis 500.
Brayton died instantly of a basilar skull fracture. It was the first time the pole sitter lost his life before the race. Tony Stewart inherited the pole from his fallen teammate, and at 24 years old became the youngest pole sitter since Rex Mays in 1936. Scott Brayton was one of the most respected drivers at Indianapolis. He raced underfunded Indy cars since 1981 and never won a race. His positive attitude and passion for the history of Indianapolis made him a fan favorite. After winning the pole for the 1995 Indy 500, Brayton laid on the track and kissed the Yard of Bricks, one of the first people to start this annual tradition. On Saturday morning, Dan Drinan crashed his 1991 car and flipped in turn 1. He suffered a concussion, broken hip, broken foot, and a bruised lung. That night, the Speedway held an emotional memorial service for Brayton.
Scott Brayton, his very name will forever bring cheers at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because he did it. He qualified. He was a record holder. he sat on the pole. And we pay tribute to him tonight.
Exactly who would take over Brayton's car was the subject of much speculation on Saturday. Team owner John Menard wanted a veteran driver. Rumors pointed toward 56-year-old Al Unser, who earlier turned down a ride with A.J. Foyt, 46-year-old Danny Sullivan, who was broadcasting a race for ABC, or the 59-year-old John Cock, who was Brayton's mentor in the early 80s. All were at the track on Saturday. Ultimately, Unser suggested Menard pick a fourth option. On Sunday morning, Team Menard announced that Danny Ongais would drive Brayton's car in the race. At 54 years old, there was a 35-year age gap between Ongais and 19-year-old Michel Jourdain, the largest gap in race history. With 35 minutes left in bump day, Billy Boat crashed hard in turn 1 and missed the race. With 20 minutes left, Scott Harrington was thrown a lifeline and qualified for the race. It was unlikely he would have made the race with his first car, but with the backup provided by De La Pena Motorsports, Harrington picked up an additional 13 miles per hour. 00 Joe Gosick was the last driver to bump into the field. 17 rookies would start the Indy 500. The week leading up to the Indy 500 was filled with pessimism. On Wednesday, the pole sitter was buried in Michigan. There was a big drop in attendance during practice, and tickets to the race were easy to get.
How's business?
It's terrible. It's bad. Can't even get face value out the seats.
Any other year, these $50 ones, which is in J, on the fourth turn would bring $150 a piece. Today, you're lucky to get 50 on them.
The month has been a disaster. People have not showed up, and they're going to blame the weather. But I've been out here when there's been 100,000 people in the rain for 10 hours hoping the qualifying opens.
The race was expected to be a runaway victory for Arie Luyendyk. Fans were divided and strong in their opinions that the other side was ruining IndyCar.
As the engines roared to life for the inaugural US 500, in the center of all the power stood a silver-haired general, leaving nothing to chance. This year, the general's army, shut out at last year's Indy 500, was instead doing battle in Michigan. His legion of red and white shirted soldiers, part of a feverish frontline war with the IRL.
Fans at Indy wore shirts criticizing CART. Roger Penske was the most hated man in Indiana. First, because of his years spent turning racing into a big business that encouraged money over talent, then seemingly creating a new race to hurt Indy when his financial advantage was taken away.
The big Roger Penske. Where in the hell was Roger Penske made? Right here at this damn racetrack. He damn sure didn't make this place like A.J. Foyt didn't, or Wilbur Shaw, or whoever. And when I'm sick and tired of hearing the crap, and I'll tell you why. Because like Mario, like they made Indianapolis, they made.
Invoking more war analogies, Foyt also said that holding a race at the same time as the Indy 500 took more guts than Hitler. For years, fans had criticized Penske for his role as one of the lead decision-makers in CART. In 1996, IRL supporters felt justified.
Roger Penske is painted as the bogeyman in this thing. Some places, if you would read, you know, he's the one pulling all the strings, but the reality is that the 19 owners are very uniform in their feelings for what this sport needs to go forward into the future.
At Michigan, CART supporters wore no IRL shirts. People were even turning on the media. Indianapolis journalist Robin Miller was vilified for his criticism of Speedway management. Letters to local newspapers called him a hypocrite for having experienced Indy in the 1960s while also defending the rich megateams that boycotted Indy. Up in Michigan, CART struggled to build excitement. Drivers spent weeks telling fans that their race would be better.
The gist of it is the best drivers in the world, the best crews in the world are racing in Michigan this year.
It would be great to be in Indianapolis. If you have the greatest spectacle in racing, you deserve to have the best race. And this year, that's not what they have. The best race is here in Michigan.
For all the anticipation that should be on Memorial Day weekend, almost no one was excited. Even at Michigan, everyone gave the impression they missed Indy.
We all want to be at Indianapolis. I mean, don't get us wrong. We all want to be there, but we want to be there with the best 33 cars.
When you're there and Jim Nabors is singing that song, whether you're from Indiana or not, your eyes get a little moist. In fact, just the thought of Jim Nabors moistens my eyes.
When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home. Jim Neighbors. To your cars, please. All drivers to their cars.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
And on the outside, Salazar pushes a little bit ahead. The row not aligned at the moment, but still we watch for the green flag. And there it is. Here we go. We're racing. As Tony Stewart in a drag race with Salazar leads them into the first turn. Tony Stewart leads into turn one across the short chute.
The early laps were marred by several harmless spins.
The inside, it looked like, and that twisted him around. We actually have two situations working. We have Scott Harrington, who got in trouble, and there he is, as he came flying up on the back of the field and then shocked the brakes, and that got him down on the inside, but look how he kept that off the wall. Looks like a problem with Paul Duran's car. Smoke at the back. He gets it on to the access road down to the pits, and he loses it. Stay down, stay down, stay down, stay down. Whoa. Yellow flag, of course, is out. The rest of the field comes by.
I don't know what happened
high
there,
in the groove.
He just looked like maybe he just stood on the gas too hard and turned that car sideways.
Stewart set a record for rookies by leading the first 31 laps. Once Stewart pitted, that gave the lead to Roberto Guerrero, and then Buddy Lazier, who was making his comeback from back injuries 2 months earlier. Stewart reassumed the lead after pit stops.
We have a car smoking badly on the racetrack. Johnny Parsons, he's in front of you, Ken Double.
Indeed, and there is a lot of smoke coming out of the backside of that car. He has moved to the inside of the back straightaway.
Under the fourth caution of the day, Stewart pitted again, which gave the lead back to Guerrero. He held the lead until a debris caution came out on lap 70. Guerrero's career at Indy was defined by strong runs and unfortunate problems that cost him shots at victory. Even in the IRL, bad luck had followed him.
They're going to take a little extra time getting the fuel in. They have yet to drop in. This is a long stop, and they've got a problem with the fueler. The fueler is apparently not in. Fuel is not feeding to Roberto Guerrero's car. They pulled it out now 2-3 times, and it is not releasing fuel, apparently. They finally got the car down, and he's killed the engine. So this is really disastrous for Roberto Guerrero. They're trying to calm him down in the pit. He has got his guys over the wall, still talking to him. Guerrero now refired, and he is back underway 1 minute and 5 seconds.
At the same time, Tony Stewart started having boost pressure problems related to the turbocharger pop-off valve.
And the report is that Tony Stewart's engine may not be sounding at full song.
When the race restarted, Davy Jones led, followed by Buddy Lazier and Stewart.
Across the north short chute, that engine sounds very sour.
Got him in front of me, and again, moving slowly. Certainly hasn't got the zip in that engine, and now it's blown. A big puff of smoke out of the back of Tony Stewart's car, dead center on the back straightaway.
Wow, there's a sick feeling in the cockpit of car number 20, and a sick feeling in the entire town of Rushville, Indiana. The Rushville Rocket, his day apparently is over.
Pre-race favorite Arie Luyendyk slowly climbed his way up to second by lap 90.
Just ahead of the leader of the race. This gives Luyendyk an opportunity. They're on the backstretch as they close in, but the yellow comes out. And
number 10
so
over here. Number 10 car. The number 10 car, Brad Murphy, just came off of turn 2, whacked the wall pretty good, got sparks and fire off the magnesium wheels.
A turning point in the race came under caution. Exiting the pits, Luyendyk and Eliseo Salazar collided.
And then this happened with Salazar. Salazar just drifted right down into the side, got up on the track, through the mud, stayed on the track. Both cars were able to continue on.
Well, he didn't just drift down, he turned down and already had the lead. Right here you'll see this yellow, see that cone on the left? Boom, he's there, he's in front, and Salazar just comes down. Totally Salazar's fault.
Luyendyk lost 5 laps repairing a damaged suspension. With the favorite gone, the race was now completely wide open. The Indy 500 went back to green around 2 o'clock. At that time, the US 500 was about to begin.
The field, perhaps the most qualified in IndyCar history. World championships in both Formula One cars and sports cars. 7 IndyCar titles, 131 total IndyCar victories between them. Jimmy Vasser, who has won 3 of the first 5 races of the season and is the points leader coming into this race, will bring the field up to speed. And we have a crash in turn 4. A crash approaching the green flag, and many, many cars are involved.
Well, something has obviously gone wrong.
This was a huge embarrassment for CART. After spending months proclaiming their drivers to be the best, they couldn't even make it to the green flag without crashing 13 cars. CART delayed the start of the race by 1 hour for teams to prepare their backup cars.
What's our situation right now, Kirk, regarding the use of backup cars for this race?
Well, our rules provide that in a situation like this, since our leader did not complete a full lap before we went red, the race will restart in its entirety. That allows all the competitors in the pit lane to reorganize. Anybody that has damage that requires a backup car will be allowed to put that backup car in its original starting position.
We look like idiots now, huh? Why? The starts and a little bit, yeah.
He was laughing, and so was Tony George.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, Jesus. Can you believe it?
Bad.
Oh, God.
Hi again, everybody. Brett Haber back in the ESPN studios. We remain in that red flag condition at the US 500. We are going to get you back out to the race in just a couple of minutes, but this gives us an opportunity to catch you up to date on the other big race. There are now 2 big races on Memorial Day weekend. Of course, the Indy 500 taken over by the IRL. It is about 3/4 complete even as we speak, and we check the leaderboard once again, and still Roberto Guerrero leading the race. 150 laps are in the books. Davy Jones is in second, Buddy Lazier in third.
After several close calls in the last 10 years, Guerrero was on the verge of an Indy 500 win, but it appeared fuel strategy would decide if he finally won. Guerrero pitted on lap 159, which cycled the lead of the race to Buddy Lazier. Davy Jones was on the same strategy as Roberto. If the race stayed green, both drivers would have to pit again with 2 laps to go. And 2 laps later, the caution came out.
Oh, and the yellow comes out. This is going to hurt. When?
Whoa, whoa! 2 cars together there.
Like Lynn St. James, we want to be careful on the identity of the other car. We think it might be Harrington, but as we said earlier, those cars, it looks to be the 44 car, the yellow and black one. That would be Harrington. So.
Now leading, Buddy Lazier made his final stop under caution. Guerrero pitted again to top off on fuel. Unfortunately, this stop proved disastrous.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, we got a problem in the Roberto Guerrero pit. They were trying to fuel him. There is a fire. There's a fire in the pit area. They are now throwing water all over the Roberto Guerrero car. They were not able to get the fueling device in correctly. The fueler has come behind the tank. He has been doused with a tank of water, and now they are hot. And I mean that literally and figuratively. He has shut off the engine. That could have finished the day for Roberto Guerrero, and they are very, very upset here.
And Roberto Guerrero begins to climb out of the car.
This gave the lead back to Davy Jones, who was just trying to stretch his fuel to the end of the race. At the front of the field, Eliseo Salazar was the first car in line behind the pace car, but running 2 laps down after his crash with Lyondike. When the green came out, Team Scandia gave him orders to block Jones and help his teammate Alessandro Zampedri.
Tries to make a move to the inside, still trying. Salazar's taking him all the way to the wall. Took him all the way to the wall.
That's really not good. That's Salazar. 2 times now he's done that today.
And there goes Zampedri. Zampedri goes for the lead of the race, and Zampedri's got it.
And Davey looks like he's slowing down. He might be just gathering himself up. But Salazar obviously didn't want to lose another lap.
What Eliseo Salazar did for Zampedri coming down the straights here allowed Zampedri to go around Davy Jones and won. That's teamwork.
What did he do exactly?
He covered his line all the way down the pit line, and he allowed Zampedri to go on the outside of Jones into 1.
So Johnny Rutherford at admission that Eliseo Salazar's move here as they came down was an intentional block of Davy Jones so that his teammate Alessandro Zampedri could get by him. It could have resulted in a disaster here on the straightaway because Jones came very close to hitting the wall as opposed to brushing it.
Well, it really could, and I'm not real fond of that, but that's racing, as they say, and you know why he pulled over to block him or what the situation was, we may never know, but if it was in fact that, then it doesn't make me very happy.
The Italian driver held the lead for the next 20 laps, but with 11 laps to go, Jones fought back.
Whoa, and he's running up high there. Zampedri ran up high and looked at Davy.
And Davy Jones said maybe that's the fuel story there as Jones comes to the front.
With Jones back in the lead, he was forced to save fuel.
Yeah, but Jones is not out of the woods. You saw him as he just passed out of view. There he is up in the corner of the screen. And I'll tell you what, I think Lazier is able to reel him in.
And I don't think Lazier, for example, has any problem with the fuel. He's just had tough times with the traffic he's had to pass.
Well, he's just radioed.
Here comes Lazier. Lazier charging on Jones. He moves to the inside of him, and Buddy Lazier picks up the lead of the 500 with 8 laps to go.
You can see how important it is. There is nothing like the excitement you get at the end of the Indy race.
It appeared Lazier had the race locked up until 5 laps to go.
Scott Sharp catches the wall at Indy. Fire on the back of the car. That's just an oil fire on the turbocharger, but
Lazier had broken his back 2 months earlier at Phoenix. By this point in the race, it was hurting so badly that he tried to stretch his arm out of the cockpit under caution to relieve the pain. The crash was cleared in time for a 1-lap shootout to end the race. With a lap car between Lazier and Jones, Buddy had clear sailing toward the finish.
The 1996 Indianapolis 500 is won by Buddy Lazier. Davy Jones finishes in second position. Crash in 4. Big crash in turn 4.
Guerrero. A big crash. Roberto Guerrero. We've also got a second car that flipped over as it came down the straightaway coming off of 4. Guerrero winds up in the pits
it's Sam
sideways.
And Hearn,
when Guerrero got out of his car during the pit fire, his radio wasn't reconnected. He said that had he known he was a lap ahead of 6th place, he wouldn't have been running as hard. Zampedri was seriously injured, suffering broken legs, dislocated ankles, and broken feet. The Indy 500 was also the deciding race for the IRL Championship, and that ended in controversy as well. With only 3 races on the schedule, the points were incredibly close. Richie Hearn's 3rd place finish tied him with Roberto Guerrero for 4th place. His bad pit stop may have cost him the race and the championship. Robbie Buell's 9th place finish put him 3rd in the standings, and at the top of the points there was a tie between Buzz Calkins and Scott Sharp. Even though Calkins won a race and Sharp did not, the IRL rulebook said nothing about tiebreakers, and thus the drivers were named co-champions. In spite of all that had happened, the Indy 500 was a success in almost every way. The rookie drivers raced respectfully. Tony Stewart proved sprint car drivers could still lead Indy. The only driver who faced criticism was Salazar, and he was in his 2nd Indy 500. The race had different strategies. Several drivers had chances to win, and the victory was taken by an underdog American driver who never had a good opportunity in CART. For all the criticism the Indy 500 took as being a race filled with rookies, the US 500 was dominated by a rookie as well. Alex Zanardi led 134 laps before losing an engine. Using his backup car, Jimmy Vasser won by 10 seconds. While the US 500 wasn't a sellout crowd with spectators, the TV ratings were good. 1.9 million people watched the race, the largest audience ever for an IndyCar race on ESPN. But as expected, ratings for the Indy 500 were far better, as 6.4 million people watched it. Tony George refused to comment on the state of the US 500. The head-to-head battle was won by the IRL. It may have been the biggest battle, but the war would still rage on.